start off?
Sure. Hey everybody, it's me, Esther, and my husband, Herbert. And I wanted to give you an update on how we've been doing. It's been 1 year. It's been a bit of a roller coaster this 1 year since the transplant. As you can see, my hair has thinned out really bad. And I'm in the process of getting my hair to grow more. And we've been just busy trying to do stuff in life as a family. What would you say, Herbert?
Yeah, she has a lot of baby hair in there. You can kind of see it more when she rolls her hair back. But I mean, apart from the hair, you know, it's been growing, so that's good. But I think it's been a good year. How many times have you gone back to the hospital? I think
it's only been twice this time around.
Twice. And for those of you who don't know, this is Esther's second heart transplant. Today is the 1 year anniversary of that. And
we're on our way to get me some celebratory coffee.
Big B Coffee.
Yes, from Big B's.
With a gift card.
Yes.
That we have. We're trying not to spend any
of our own money.
Personal money, earned money on eating out. We've done pretty good so far, right, honey? How long have we done?
43 days.
43 days without having to spend any of our earned money. Now, if we get a gift card from someone, or if we fill out a survey or something, yeah, we'll get something.
Or if I play my games and get gift cards.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's been a good year. I think your numbers, honey, have been good.
They have been. We've even been able to go on a vacation for 3 weeks with our kids.
We went on a 3-week vacation back in June, while I was in between jobs, and that was a lot of fun, much needed.
Yes.
The kids, I think, have been doing well. Our children, I think, still are a little concerned whenever we tell them that we need to go to the doctor. Esther has to go this Friday for the 1 year, what is it?
My 1 year annual.
So she's going to have a biopsy and...
No biopsy.
Oh, no biopsy, excuse me.
They're just going to do the left heart cath.
Left heart cath, okay. So sometimes our children, whenever they hear that she's going to go to the doctor, they get concerned. Because last time we told them the day that we left, we told the children that morning, because Esther woke up and told me, I'm not feeling well. And it was like maybe half an hour or an hour before the kids had to go to school.
It's an hour.
And so then the choice was, you know, whether we just all go together to the hospital or put the kids in the bus and then go. And I think we decided to just put the kids in the bus, right?
Yep, so I figured it'd just be fast, getting fluid off.
Yeah, we thought it was just to get fluid out. And then all of a sudden, when we got there, well, we told the kids that morning that we were going to just go to the doctor's real quick. And next thing you know, we're at the doctor's at the hospital, and it was not just about fluid. They said that, what did the doctor say?
My valves.
Her valves were detaching. And they told us that they might be able to repair it or might not be able to repair it. And I'm not sure if it was that day or the following day. They told us afterwards that you're probably going to need a heart transplant, right?
It was the following day.
And that took us by shock, because we said she did, but the family just went through the whole process 3 years prior, right, honey?
Yes.
And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And Hold on just a second here. I'm gonna get some gift card. All right, so we got our Big B latte. So where we were at, honey?
We were talking about why I had to get another transplant.
So we were back, and after I left, so I stayed with Esther. The first day I stayed with Esther. I think I didn't get home until like 8:30 or something like that. And my mother was watching the kids. And I remember when I got back, my son was crying because he was our son, excuse me. Our son was crying, and he was upset at me, and because we were gone so long. Obviously, he got home from school and we still weren't home, and Esther had not returned with me, and he was very upset. He didn't know what was going on. So the whole dynamic of the family, you know, having to go through this was very challenging, and especially children, because they have almost no control over anything. And as an adult, you know, thinking about how much of this should we as parents share with them. And you know, I thought about it a lot, and because the first transplant, they were a lot younger. They barely remember.
They remember some,
but not too much. Our son is 9 now, so a year ago he was 8. 3 years prior he was 5.
Yeah. And he got mad though when he saw the swan in my neck.
Yep. And our daughter was 4. So when the first transplant happened, they didn't ask too many questions. But for the second transplant, they were definitely asking more questions, and he was very upset. And I, you know, tried to comfort him as much as I could. But I didn't know, and Esther didn't know, that morning when we said goodbye to them, it was going to be 2 months before they would be able to see their mom in person, because of the whole COVID restrictions from the hospital.
And with me being in ICU.
And Esther being in the cardiac ICU. So, whenever the children hear that we're going to the doctor, they get a little apprehensive. Let's see if I can. Sorry, the mount is giving us a little bit of trouble here. Trying to. So, that happened, and when the following day, when I went back to the hospital, and at this point, I told my job that thankfully I had been there a year, that I was going to take FMLA as needed at that point. I went the following day, and they told us, I think it was that afternoon, right?
They sat me down and asked which option I wanted.
Yeah.
They said that the valve surgery most likely would not work. They could still go in, but still have to be listed for transplant. And I told them I just wanted transplant.
And it was very hard, because this would be the 3rd time for Esther to have her sternum open, and you don't want to open it up too much. I think the surgeon says something, or the doctor says something about it's not good to open it up too much, but that I think he said that's the decision he would make if that was his family member or something. Yeah. That he would
make the same decision.
Right, that he would do the heart transplant. So obviously that just threw us for a spin, and you know, we had no idea what was going on. Why? I think was one of the biggest questions, right? Like, why was this happening? Esther had been eating well. Esther had been
finally getting my mental health and everything and where it needed to be. I was actually outside exercising, walking, doing my kids.
She was getting better, but I would say maybe like 2 months prior to that, you were somewhat tired, but maybe it's because we went on a family vacation to the Ark in the Creation Museum, and Esther was getting pretty tired. We weren't quite sure, if it was anything. Maybe it might have just been the heat or something, right?
I thought it was the heat and just going nonstop and being dehydrated.
Right. Because it was pretty hot. We went to like some kind of animal thing. It was pretty hot outside. Anyway, and then we went to a theme park, right?
Yeah, we went to Kentucky Kingdom.
Yep. So after that happened, the doctor told us that she needed a transplant, and it's almost like okay, here we go at it again.
Yep.
We just went through this. How does it feel from my perspective, and then from your perspective, how going through it again? My perspective as a caregiver is, okay, this is rough, but we've done this before. We'll just do it again. My biggest concern, apart from Esther, was the kids and how they were going to take everything. What do you, prior to the transplant, honey, what were your thoughts with in regards to having to go through it again? Yeah.
I was upset having to go through the mental side of everything again, now that I had just started getting better mentally, into a better headspace. And I was also concerned about you and the kids, trying to make sure that they would be okay and that they would understand why and everything was going to happen again. And I was trying to come to terms and to peace with going through it again, for if something did happen, that I wasn't going to be around if I didn't get a heart.
Yeah. So, and we were also thinking whether I should take time off of work and stay, try to help you at the hospital. Most people, I would say, told me to not take time off of work, to go back to work, and that the nurses and so forth were going to take care of her. That's easier said than done.
We thought it was best that you did take the time off.
Well, afterwards we thought it was best to, but most people were telling us not to take the time off. And part of the reason is because here in Indiana, unlike New York, there is no paid FMLA. So the FMLA is just, time that protects your job, but not that we get paid. So I decided to take the time off, and Esther's sister-in-law,
she created a GoFundMe to be able to help with the bills and everything while I was waiting for my transplant.
And thank God that that GoFundMe and then other individuals, help in different ways with meals and donations, and that gave me the option to stay with Esther and be there for her, for emotional support as best I could, and be her advocate in any way that I could.
Yeah, because there was one time while we were waiting, my body went into cardiogenic shock, and they had to do like an emergency surgery, and you had to be my advocate and everything like that.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, decision making wise from my end, where she's unconscious or something, and the doctors say this needs to be done. Will you sign the documents? It's a lot of pressure. So just got to think a lot, pray to God, and I want to trust the doctors, but you also have to be discerning, because even doctors can make mistake. But ultimately, you have to trust in the sovereign hand of God, and so obviously, being married puts this responsibility on the spouse, and so yeah, sometimes I would have to make decisions like that, which are weighty decisions.
Yes.
Honey, So there was a period when you were not in the cardiac ICU. What was it? What was the reason that they ended up putting you in the cardiac ICU?
Because at the hospital I was at, when you get a swan put in your neck to help check the pressures of the heart, you have to be at this hospital. You have to be in the cardiac ICU.
Yeah, and a swan is like a thing stuck in your neck. Where else? Didn't they stick it somewhere else?
And they did it in my groin.
The groin area as well. Yeah, to check the pressures.
They did it in the groin after the transplant because they couldn't get it in my neck again.
And that was also to put you higher in the list, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But
okay.
when they did the balloon pump, that made me like
even faster,
even higher on the list.
So, honey, how did you feel? What was the difference between being in a cardiac ICU for the second transplant as opposed to just being in a regular cardiac floor for the first transplant in New York?
What the difference was, when I was on the cardiac floor for the first one, I could actually walk around and do the exercise and everything on my own. In the ICU, I had to get permission from the nurses and have the physical therapist walk me around. I couldn't just do it by myself.
Do you remember, honey, how long it was before you needed the balloon? I think it was probably, 3 weeks prior to the transplant?
I think it was 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
Because they had just moved the balloon up to my shoulder.
Okay.
And then within like 2 or 3 days, they did the transplant, I think.
Yeah. So they decided to, I remember that doctors were running back and forth, and Esther was conscious, and they told you that they needed to do the balloon, right? Because the numbers weren't looking good?
No, they had to do the balloon because I went into cardiac shock.
Oh, okay.
What happened was there was an infection going rampant in my body at that point, and I started like shaking really bad, and we couldn't get my body to stop shaking.
Yeah.
Because he changed to a different medicine that my body could not handle. And so they had to, once Herbert got to the hospital, he had to sign paperwork and everything for me to go and get the balloon pump done.
Yeah, I do remember that.
It was like an emergency.
Right. Because in between this time, I switched jobs. I actually went to work for 1 week. Esther and I had talked about it. It was a better paying job, a lot better. And I took better fit. Thank you, honey. And I took a week of work, and right towards the end of that first week of work,
we got the call for the transplant.
Okay, but I'm still jumping spots. I'm trying to keep this linear. So, honey, they put the balloon in, and now you definitely needed to lay in bed because you had no choice physically.
Yeah.
You really couldn't get out of bed. Tell us psychologically, how did that feel? We saw some of those things on Facebook, obviously, but
it was really hard psychologically because I was used to being able to do things on my own. They were letting me get up and go to the bathroom on my own. They were letting me like take care of myself and not have to worry about the nurses helping. When they put the balloon pump in my leg, it made it to where I could not do anything on my own anymore. I could eat on my own, but I had to sit in a certain position. They couldn't really do anything. They had to come in and do the physical therapy with me. I actually had to ask for the physical therapy because I did not want to lose any more muscle in my legs. It was hard on me mentally because I was used to being able to do everything, and I hate asking people for help.
Yeah, and another thing is that whenever you had to, you were so dependent on so many machines, and
yes,
and
when I had to use the restroom, they had to come in and help.
Yeah, and whenever you would have to have a test done or another small procedure or adjustment done, it would literally take 4 to 5 people to go into the ICU room, and everybody would grab a contraption, and and one person would grab the bed, and they were all moving. It almost felt like half the room was moving along with them.
Yes.
And those elevators are massive.
Yeah,
And
but they would sometimes, when they would move some of the devices, they would pull on like the lines and everything, and it would hurt. So they would have to, like, some people would have to slow down, some people would have to speed up. It's like a huge, like, ordeal.
It was, and it just like, for me, it made me visually see, apart from all the connections that were already with her in the room, when I would see Esther move with all of those contraptions, that didn't happen with the first transplant.
No.
Because she didn't get as bad. Maybe because you had the defibrillator?
Yeah.
Or
it's because I had the defibrillator pacemaker.
okay, but I don't think you got anywhere as bad physically, right, as weak as you did for the second transplant.
No, because the second one they had me on oxygen too.
Yeah, it was. So even though she's gone through the transplant twice, I would say, my personal opinion, the second time it was just a lot harder. The whole process for me, it was a lot harder, because we were going through a lot of transitions in our life. The kids were older, and you seem to be more dependent on more machines.
Yes.
And
trying to prevent the kids from seeing me with being on more machines when I would talk to them through FaceTime. That was really hard to try to do.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want the kids scared.
Yeah. Then you got a call, like around the first week of September, for heart, but then ended up being the heart itself tested COVID positive, right?
The donor
tested COVID positive. So they decided not to use the heart.
Yes.
Then on November 11th,
I got a call at like 1:30 in the morning. The nurses had to actually wake me up because for you to accept the heart, they have to call your personal cell phone for you to accept it. So they had to actually call me, and so the nurses came in and told me to answer the phone when somebody called. And so I did, and I had to actually accept it then and there. So then I had to call Herbert and let him know so he could be prepared to come up. And then at that point, they told us that, what's it called? I would be going in at like sometime in that morning. So I was not allowed to eat. And so Herbert ate something before you came up, right?
I think. To me? Yeah, something like that. Do you remember what day of the week it was?
It was a Sunday.
Yeah, let's just wait here for a moment. No. When you received the call.
Was it a Saturday? It was a Saturday.
I think it was a Saturday.
Because my parents were in Arizona, not flying.
Yeah, something like that. It was either Friday or Saturday.
It was a Saturday.
Okay. So, after that, we waited the whole day, right?
Yes, and I was very hangry.
Yeah.
Because they would not let me eat at all that day.
Yeah, I remember that. And I think you couldn't drink either, right?
No, I couldn't drink, I couldn't eat. And then the nurses, I said, when they found out that it was going to be at midnight, they all felt bad because I had not eaten or drinking anything.
Yeah, I think you had.
Day.
Yeah, I think you had gone
almost 24 hours because they stopped me eating at midnight.
Yeah, I think you went almost 24 hours, even more than 24 hours, because you went through the transplant and you went about 48 hours, I think, without even eating anything. But we're jumping ahead. So you went about 24 hours before the transplant without eating anything. And I think they finally took you around midnight. Mm-hmm. And it was around the same time the first time. It was also...
It was midnight the first time.
It was midnight. And I was allowed to go with her to the operation area, right?
To the staging.
Yeah.
you're allowed to be there you're allowed to say goodbye, then you had to leave.
You gave me your glasses.
Which was hard because then I couldn't see.
She couldn't see. Imagine
and the
that.
respiratory therapist that was there with me, since I was on oxygen, she was laughing at me because the last time we went down, I had given her my glasses because Herbert wasn't with us when they had moved the pump. And I gave her my glasses, and she was supposed to give it back to my nurses, and she forgot. And so they had to find her, and I told her, I'm giving it to my husband this time, so I can get my glasses once I wake up.
Yeah. Let's put this over here more. So she went downstairs and she gave me her glasses, and
Said goodbye.
We said our goodbyes, and those are very challenging moments, as you can imagine, because you don't know what's going to happen. I have small children. How do we, just process everything? And all I can do was, just pray and think and pray and think. And then maybe even try to distract myself to some degree so I didn't grow overly anxious. What was going through your mind once you gave me your glasses? You couldn't see well. You're there in that area. Did they put you to sleep right away? Did you lay down there for a bit?
What they did right away, I was in the waiting room for, I think it was like 10, 15 minutes, waiting to be rolled back. And once I got back there, they helped me get onto the surgical table. And then I asked them to give me something because I was extremely anxious since they weren't ready to give me the stuff to put me out. So they gave me some Valium, and that helped relax me. And then they gave me some things to help be able to go to sleep when it was time to go to sleep. Okay. And then I don't remember anything else until I started waking up.
So from my perspective, what was happening is I went into the waiting area, the cardiac ICU floor waiting area, and you're only supposed to be there until like 6:30, I think. But they let me stay up there, and I had my in-laws, they were supporting me, sending me text messages, and encouraging me. And I was there and just thinking about everything. And I think at some point around 6 a.m. or so, I fell asleep. I just remember nurses approaching me, I think when the morning shift came, and they told me, I can't be there, I need to get out of there. And I told them that my wife's in for a transplant, and I'm still waiting to hear something from, what do you call them, the cardiac nurse or ICU nurse. And they just told me to go into another room, and I went in there, and then I woke up around, I think it was 10 a.m., half dazed, because they made me go into a room where I had to close the door. It was like I'm not sure what kind of waiting room it is. And I woke up dazzled, or like my hair and I didn't even understand. I didn't even know what day of the week it was, really. I just knew that I hadn't heard about you, and I started freaking out. And I went to the nurse's station, and I said, have you heard anything about my wife? And they said, we haven't heard anything. We'll let you know. I said, I'm in that one room they made me go into. And they said, okay. And I think I waited another 30 minutes, and I still hadn't heard anything. So I went to the main waiting area again. And I think around 11:30, they came up to me, and it had already been a little over 11 hours since they took her. And the nurse told me that there was just, I'm not sure what word she used. I'm not sure if she said excessive or substantial bleeding, and that they were dealing with it, and that they were patting you dry. Mm-hmm. So apparently, through the process itself, you were, I guess, just bleeding more.
They also had to give me blood transfusions while I was down there.
And then the surgeon pulled me into the ICU room, and he looked exhausted. He had a cup of coffee, which was almost done, and he was leaning over, and I'll be honest with you, he looked like he had just run a marathon. He looked exhausted. And I looked at him, and he said, okay, so everything looked good. He said it was just really sticky, really sticky is what he said. Apparently, since it's a second heart transplant, it had a lot of scar tissues and whatnot. So I guess when removing things, he had to be extra cautious, because I think things weren't separating as clean as the first time, or at least what he was accustomed to. He also told me that the transplant itself looked different, if I remember correctly, than what he's used to. So apparently there was a different procedure done. The transplant was done differently the first time than it was done here. So that was different from what he said. And then I'm not sure. All right, so we had to do some storage management. So
I have too much storage.
So when she got up there, what I will say is that, to make the story go faster, there's a lot of detail, but ultimately, to cut it short, is that Esther was sedated to the point where it almost looked like she was just asleep the whole time, right, honey? Mm-hmm. And she was having some issues with the kidneys, because the same thing happened to the first transplant. I think it has something to do with the bypass machine, but I don't know.
It is, because I had the same problem when I had my surgery when I was 15.
Right, but we're not doctors, but, just from observation, maybe. Mm-hmm. So, she blew up like a little balloon. About, I don't know, her volume really increased. And, a lot of people prayed, a lot of people helped, through Facebook. We appreciate, all the prayers from everyone. And thankfully, I think after like 2 days, I think on the third day is when your kidney function started to work a little bit more. And she was putting out more urine than liquids that she was taking in.
I don't remember. I was out.
Yeah, it was really, really rough. And, I had,
Didn't teach me how to breathe again.
People, right, people, coming and helping and encouraging, pastors. And there were 2 therapists that were there for Esther, but I guess I used them. And they were really nice, and very helpful, very encouraging. Mm-hmm. So on, I think it was that Thursday or that Friday. No, it was that Friday. They were doing a lot of tests, and the AFib numbers were kind of off because her heart was irritated by the amount of chemicals that were there, and her heart rate would jump from 80 to like 170, 90 to 140, back to 85 to 165. It was just like within a minute. It was just, and I was getting really scared, and I started panicking. They asked me to go out into the waiting area because I think they saw that I started panicking. This was like on a Wednesday or Thursday, I forgot. And I prayed, and when I went back in there, her numbers were still off, but they gave you some some medicine. I forgot what the medicine was. Amnio. Yeah. That's what they called it. Yeah. I'm not sure if that was a nickname. So
it's the nickname for it. It's Andio. I don't know how to say it.
But that ended up helping you a lot. And so what happened is that they said, okay, now she can go on. They did some other tests with your intestines. They were having a lot of trouble with that too, I remember. So ultimately, they tested out. Oh, and also I would call every night. Remember that? I would call every night because she would bite people, and I was so scared that she was going to bite her respirator. And one of the mornings that I went, and they put like a bite blocker on her mouth because she was a biter. So I'm glad. So then I wasn't as panicky at night. I didn't panic as much because I thought she was gonna block her respirator and die or something.
They would have caught it.
Yeah, that's just me being paranoid. But so then that Friday they said, all right, Esther, they told me, okay, we're gonna try it out. And I said, great. I said, when are you gonna do it? I was probably gonna take an hour to get started. So I said, okay. I went downstairs to go get some breakfast, and when I came up, apparently she had failed the respirator test, and I was upset because they didn't let me be there. And I think that afternoon around 1 or 2 they had her try again, and they reduced the sedation, but she was still out of it, but her eyes kind of open. And they had left the area, the respiratory therapist and whatnot had left, technician had left the room. So I was there, and I looked at Esther. I was like, Esther, can you see me? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if you can remember any of that, but
I remember that.
And then she had like the thing in her mouth, and this thing was all over her face, and all this other stuff, and she would just be like, and I just remember that I really encouraged her to breathe, and I would say, breathe with me, just try to coach her. And I guess I was being really, really loud. And one of the ICU nurses came inside, and she said, you can't be that loud, so you can't coach her like that. You need to sit down. And I had been doing that for a good 10 minutes, I think, at that point. And they made me sit down and be quiet, and I was quiet. And then that same nurse came back about 5 minutes later because her numbers were dropping. All right, she seems to do better when you're over there, she said. So why don't you go over there, but just don't be as loud. And, we kept on trying and exercising, and then ended up taking the respirator out finally. And she was fully able to breathe, and
my voice was gone.
Her voice was gone. And so it was really a good moment. There were some other things that also went on. There's just so much to this. I mean, I feel like we're skipping a lot, but ultimately,
maybe at some point we can go in detail about what happened like after.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I'll say is that there's something called ICU delirium, and she went through that first weekend, and thankfully,
and not sleeping.
And there's a lot involved, and the different medicine they were giving, prescriptions they were giving you. So it was a road to recovery. When she came back to the house, I think it took about 2 weeks for you to recover, a week or two.
A week.
I think they let you
2
out.
weeks.
Yeah, so they let you out like the following Friday, I think it was, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the following Friday, after she was able to breathe on her own, and then the kids were super excited when she got back. We were all super excited.
Them.
Still a lot of therapy for all of us, especially Esther. She's had great therapists. If any of you are going through any of that, definitely get therapists, right, honey?
I recommend that to everybody that goes through this. They need to have therapy after.
Yep. And even the caregiver also needs to, use some of that as well. Maybe at some other point I'll talk about different episodes of, panic attacks and everything that happened to her, and even to me as a caregiver. There's a lot involved in that. Yeah. But, we were all very happy, and now it's been a year. Minor setbacks, I think, overall, right?
Just minor lately.
I think the first transplant I had more setbacks, right?
Oh, yeah. The first transplant, I was sick and in the hospital almost every other month.
Yeah.
This time I've not been, and have not had rejection this time either.
Okay. Before we go inside, honey, did you want to say anything to anyone that is about to face a heart transplant, or their spouse or family members about to go through that?
It will be scary at first, but just lean on support and find local support to help. And just realize that it might look like you're not progressing or you're getting tired of waiting. It will come. They're waiting for the right heart.
Okay, good. Well, thank you all for watching. This was just I'm not sure if it was a 1-year update necessarily. It was more like a recap.
Yeah, 1 year recap.
No, a recap of the second transplant,
Yeah.
but maybe you can post something else later about
Yeah.
more of your progress.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all.